Hey there, it's Melissa Brunetti, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Karma podcast. Hey there, Karma crew. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Mind Your Own Karma, Beyond the Bandage. Have you ever felt like you were living someone else's life? Maybe following rules, roles, or expectations that just didn't fit or feel right? What if you could throw all of that out the window and finally start showing up as your true, unapologetic self? Today's guest is here to help you do exactly that. I am super excited to welcome Meghan Lambert to the show, a human design and gene keys guide who knows firsthand what it's like to lose yourself and to find your way back home. Through her unique lens, including her experience as both an adoptee and a birth mother, Meghan has embraced the powerful truth that we are not broken, but whole. We're just on a journey to discover who we truly are. With a blend of intuitive insights and grounded tools, Meghan helps people move from autopilot to authentic living, making deep transformation feel more like a homecoming than hard work. Whether she's decoding energetic blueprints, diving into shadow work, or sparking those soul-deep conversations, Meghan's work is all about celebrating every messy, beautiful step of choosing yourself. Today, we're talking about how human design can support healing and self-acceptance, how deconditioning helps us drop old stories, and why personal growth isn't about fixing yourself. It's about finally seeing who you've been all along. Get ready to rip off the bandage because today's episode isn't about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming who you already are. Let's dive in. We are welcoming Meghan Lambert to the show today. Hi, Meghan.
Hi.
Super excited. We're going to be talking about human design today. And Meghan is also an adoptee and a birth mother. So we're going to dive into that a little bit just to kind of get her perspective on her healing journey. And then we're going to talk a lot about human design, which I know a little bit about, but not a lot. So I'm glad that you're here to kind of dig into that. Um, so you've experienced both sides of adoption as far as a closed as an adoptee and an open as a birth mother.
Yes.
How has that experience shaped the person and healer that you are now?
Well, with it being closed, I don't think there was even a choice back in, the 80s when I was born, and especially in the location I was born. I was born and adopted in the Philippines. So,
Okay.
like, I'm 100% Filipino. I was adopted into a military American family. So, like, there was all this dynamic of whatnot. I had no idea, like, it was even a possibility to have an open adoption back then, especially where I was at.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much, it didn't really bother me that it was like a closed one, where heard multiple people say, that the adoption stories where, like, they had the choice. There was no choice for me. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is it. Like, okay. It was easy for me to accept that. So then when I became a birth mom and I was offered this opportunity, hey, do you want a closed or do you want to open one? Immediately I was like, I want to open one because I don't want my child to have all the questions that I had and
Yeah.
wonder what in the world. Um, so that was like my perspective on closed versus open. So I'm just like so grateful to have experienced both sides.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So are you still in touch with your birth child?
Yes, actually, we have the most amazing relationship. I've kept in touch with him, I want to say like the first couple of years because we were living in the same state. Like I said, I was a military child, so I moved around practically every 9 months. So we kept in touch. And then in the middle years, I was still questioning, okay, I know I'm a birth mom, but do I even have the right to like
Mm.
check in and see how he's doing and all that because I didn't know how that played. I
Yeah.
was closed adoption, experienced that. But where does that fit in as a birth mom? Thankfully, like I was blessed with the most perfect adopted family that I
Mm.
picked for him. Um, and they're like my second family. And so I absolutely have this amazing relationship with that whole family. Recently, he just graduated from high school, like last year. And so they called me. They said, "Hey, you want to come?" And I was like, "Of course." They're
Mm.
like, "You want to stay in our house?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go."
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I try to go there once a year over the summer. And, we get together and we hang out for a week. I want to say just this last year when he graduated, actually met a good portion of his extended family and like just realizing like we're talking, me and my firstborn, we're talking, we're hanging out, we're cracking jokes, and then like I back away a little bit so he can hang out with his cousins. and, and then so I'm talking to his aunts and his uncles, and they're like, what's so fascinating to see this relationship that you have with your birth son. And I'm kind of looking at them like, well, isn't this how most adopted, open adoptions work? They say no. And I was just like mind blown by it.
Yeah. No.
I had no idea.
No.
Like, that was so new to me. And so they're like crying and they're like, thank you for, doing what you do and still open to this and not making this difficult for us and we're not making it difficult for you. And it was just like this beautiful realization. I know he's like 18 at this time, but I'm like, what?
Yeah, yep, that's so true. I hear stories all the time about it's mostly how the adoptive parents don't follow through on whatever was set in place,
Hmm.
and that that the birth parent really has no legal,
Yeah.
um, course to take to enforce that. And so a lot of times they lose track of their child, even though it was supposed to be open.
Oh
It's crazy.
yeah. I
Yeah,
yeah, I just realized that. I was like, I had no idea. Like I think what made it work so well is the fact that I was adopted too.
yeah,
So like I can understand and like anytime that they had questions like, hey, yes, they did counseling before they even went into adoption
wow,
just to get all the, angles that they could, which versus when my firstborn was adopted, when I was adopted, like there was no counseling
yeah.
whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, okay, this is great. But anytime that they had like a question and they say, "Hey, can we pick your brain about something?" Just coming because I think they were talking to me like have knowing that I was adopted. Like, how do you feel about this? Just getting that
Mm,
kind of perspective before they even went about
yeah,
it with their kid. And I was
that's
just
amazing.
like, wow, you really are an amazing like I
So was
picked
that something that the adoption agency encouraged, or was that
mm,
something that they just kind of said, we need to do this?
um well, here's the thing with that. They had when I had picked them, they had already adopted another child. And so it was like they were already had experience with having an adopted child that when I came in the picture and provided, their other child, I think they were like, okay, let's try this route. Let's just see if this works.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were more open and like forthcoming with, taking on a different perspective and, understanding, okay, um, yes, this is legally my child, but also know that there is an attachment, this bond that birth son or birth child with birth mom that needs to also stay intact. in some
Mm,
way, shape, or form, which was beautiful. And I was
yeah,
like, oh, you guys are amazing.
that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Maybe things are starting to change and people are really starting to get educated about what needs to happen for the child, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
instead of
for
just
sure.
worrying about creating a family. There's this other little
Yeah.
person over here that's going through some stuff, you know?
Yeah. And
Oh.
it's really important, especially, adoptee and adopted. It's really important to understand that there is a bond that can't be broken, no matter how hard you try to break it,
Hmm.
regardless of the experience of how you even receive this child. There is a bond.
Yeah.
And the more you try to, uh, like, I'm a deconditioning coach, the more you try to make these conditions to, like, form this kind of scenario that works for you as a parent, as what do you call them? Adopter parent? Okay.
Adoptive parent.
The adoptive parents. Yes. No matter hard you try, there's still going to be this aspect that you can't like condition. It's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. We could have an whole episode on that, but
Yeah.
all that good stuff.
Yes.
So you say you embrace the truth about everything, and I'm like everything is in air
Yes.
quotes right now. What does that mean to you, and how did that shift your healing journey?
Okay, so it's funny you asked us, like everybody's like, "Where'd you get that?" I'm like, "Because I am everything that I need to be at every moment." So
Mm,
like we all try to play or stay in this one lane. We're conditioned to believe that or think that the way to be successful or the way to be happy, you have to stay in this one lane, have one focus. And like this epiphany came to me when I was, deep diving, doing some healing on understanding my human design,
hmm.
looking at my charts and whatnot, that I'm like, no, I'm everything. And everybody is everything. It's just, okay, what is your everything in that moment? It doesn't
Yeah.
have to match what you were yesterday or last year or maybe a decade ago. I am everything that I need to be in every moment.
Mm.
So,
That's a good mantra.
yes.
Everybody should write that on a sticky note. Stick it on
So,
their
yeah.
mirror.
Yes, yes. And I like to remind people, I'm like, no, you're exactly who you need to be at every moment. So embrace that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So today we're kind of focusing on human design. So for listeners who might not be familiar with that, can you break down what human design is?
Okay, so human design is a mixture of four different things. It is the chakra system, astrology, the I Ching, and the Kabbalah. I like to Mickey Mouse Clubhouse it down for people, and I say it is the personality test without the personality, like without the test. Like it gives you pretty much your blueprint on how you effortlessly live your life, how you're meant to move and flow and interact and be in this life. And that's how I explain it. And I'm like, whatever questions that you have about yourself, I bet, actually, no, I know for a fact that I can look at your chart and say, this is
Wow.
why, or this is how, or this is what. We already know the who. So it just answers the questions. So
So
that's
do you go by um birthday and like certain
it is your birthday, place, and time.
okay.
And so when you plug all that information, it gives you a chart that has 9 different centers, and some of them will be colored in, some of them will not. Some of them have like gates, but it's open, but it's not defined. It's just there's so much that goes into it, but it's so fascinating. If you jump into this and you like plug in, a lot of people will be like, what am I looking at? It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I like to like take baby steps, and I always tell people like, "Hey, try not to go in too deep too fast because you're supposed to embody a little bit at a time once you actually do come to acknowledge, oh, this is who I am." Because
Mm.
things don't have change doesn't happen overnight, y'all. So you got to do
Yeah.
it piece by piece.
Do some people like flat out like that's not me? Like, or do they really? Because they're so like conditioned to be a certain way. When they
Well,
get their design, it's like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't resonate with me. Do you ever people have people
yeah.
do that?
Like I did a workshop one day back when I first started this, just to see and how things would go. And one person, there's the solar plexus, which all in human design, and even as well as the chakra system, solar plexus, emotions and whatnot. They're like, someone had a defined solar plexus, and I had said a defined solar plexus means you feel a lot. And then one person was like, no, I don't. And then I was like looking at their chart a little deeper. I said, oh, this is why you were conditioned to believe and like hold in those emotions.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's still also it's there's something when people are like, no, that's not me. And then I go in and I'm like, well, here it is. This person made you turn this off. This
Oh,
is why
wow.
it had helped me through my, deconditioning, when like finding who I was when, I stepped into my family, or not stepped, I was kind of just given,
Yeah.
like, here.
Yeah.
Like, understanding who I was versus who they wanted me to be and why it didn't work out. I've spent decades trying
Mm.
to like prove myself to them and like heal all this stuff and be like, why is it not working? This is not comfortable. But once I like looked at it, I was like, oh, because I was never meant to fit into their mold. That
Mm.
is why. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had people be like, well, I don't do that. And so when I give them homework after I tell them, they're like, oh, it's all coming together now. I'm
Yeah.
like, yep.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, how did you come across human design and what was it that resonated to you about
um,
it?
I was actually, I just got done with hypnotherapy. And my hypnotherapist gave me homework. She was like, hey, I need you to listen to this episode on a podcast, the podcast that she does. And I was like, okay. And then I got addicted to her podcast, that I like started scrolling and finding. And I was like, human design. Last time I tried to step into human design, it just wasn't for me at the time.
Hmm.
But this time, like the way she was speaking and what she was saying, I was like, that's me. And so I was like, okay. So that's how I came into human design. Because when I was doing the hypnotherapy, the only reason why I was doing hypnotherapy was there was a voice in my head that was living there for like my whole life that I wanted to get rid of. And I
Hmm.
didn't know how to. So I was like, let's try hypnotherapy. So I did that. And then, like, going into human design, it made me understand, oh, this is why this person has been living in my head
Mm.
for like my whole life. I'm like, okay, now I even know how to like decipher that it's hers and not mine. And
Hmm.
also tell her to shut up and move out. Like, here's your eviction notice.
Yeah.
Go, be
Yeah.
gone. So, yeah.
So the combination of hypnotherapy
And
and
human
human
design.
design
Yeah.
helped you kind of tackle that.
Yeah. It
Interesting.
was my stepping stone into giving myself permission to invite other people into my healing journey. Because
Mm.
for a while I was doing it by myself. I have no problem like facing things that I know I need to face and like working through them and whatnot. But there was a point in time in my life where I've done all that I could, and I'm like, I can't. And that's when spirit was like, hey, it's time to invite somebody in. You
Mm.
can't do this anymore by yourself. You've got to let somebody in. And luckily this person came along, and I was just like, you. You're good.
which is tough to do as an adoptee. I mean,
It is.
there's so many of us that are like very closed off to asking for help or,
Mm-hmm. Oh
yeah, so
yes.
it's tough. Yeah.
It is very tough. As like being a how I was adopted. I went from, being in my mother's womb and then entering into this world. And I believe I was with six different families
Wow.
before I ended up with the family that I ended up with.
Mm.
And so, like, I did all this, and it was just like, uh, they had already had this dynamic within their family because I'm the only one that's adopted out of the five kids that my parents have.
Okay.
And so it was just like, this is why they were like, okay, why aren't you like them? And I'm
Yeah.
like, because, because I did it in the nicest way possible. And I wasn't trying to be mean to my mom, but I was like, because you did not birth me. I
Yeah.
am not
I am different.
biologically yours. You may have raised me, but you did not birth me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I was told they would be like, "Oh, you need to be more like, your siblings, or you need to shut that off." Like,
But I'm not.
and I'd be like, "No. Like what's wrong with you?" And I always thought I was the problem. For the
Hmm.
longest time, I was like, okay, it's me. It's me. It's because, I'm different. And so many times I've tried to like condition myself to be like them, but I couldn't. Like it would just seriously, our bodies are like secret. It holds our secrets. So when things aren't working, you start getting all these body aches and
Yes.
things, and so the more I tried, the more my body would shut down.
Yep.
And I'd just be like, "Ugh, this isn't working." So when I finally was like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. The the shock that my body went through was like, oh, it's about time. It is about
You're like, thank
time.
you. Finally.
Thank you. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So, personally, how did human design support you in finding your authenticity and like in what ways? And I bet you finding that was so freeing. I
It
mean,
was.
yeah.
Okay, so like I had said, I thought I always was the problem. And the more and the deeper I went in and was understanding the different parts of myself, human design showed me that I wasn't wrong. Like all the things that I thought I was wrong about myself showed me no, that's who you were meant to be.
Yeah.
This is a part of you. You can't change it. Now, like human design, it's a fixed thing. You can't change it. And so knowing that it's like, okay, this is me. I finally get to take these pieces, understand them, implement into my life because like I've been conditioned to either turn it off, shut it off, or hold it in, one or the other. Um, and now I get to like activate it, reawaken it, and start feeling the ease that I've always meant. I mean, we're all supposed to feel ease, the ease that we're meant to feel in life,
Yeah.
the acceptance, because I finally am sitting in a place where I can fully accept myself, all parts of it. I know I did things that I probably wouldn't know. I know for a fact I wasn't supposed to do. I mean, we're human. We're supposed
Right.
to. So like I can actually accept those parts of me and sit with it. But I don't feel shame anymore. I don't feel
Mm.
guilty anymore. I feel so proud of all parts of me, like regardless of what happened to me. Like I probably would do it every single thing that I went through and done over again
Hmm.
because I don't think I would be here today if I never did. And I just had
Yeah.
this conversation with my husband. He's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "You know what?" I think I would do it all over again. He goes, okay.
I was just thinking as you were talking how because we you use birthday and time of birth and things like that. After talking to so many adoptees over the last couple of years, there's a lot of adoptees that have a wrong birthday on their birth certificates.
Yeah. Oh my
So
goodness.
like they'll find out later that that was not their birthday, or they don't know really when their birthday was. They'll get in contact with their birth mother finally and like, oh yeah, I just wrote that day down because I couldn't really remember what day you
Remember
were
what it
born or
was?
whatever. Yeah.
Oh
So that would
man.
really, yeah, that's another thing people don't think about
Yeah.
with
I didn't
adoptees.
know my birth time. And because I'm so intuitive and I have this connection to spirit, um I actually had to do a deep meditation to figure out what time I was born. And I think that's why I haven't really messed with human design because I was like, I don't even know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like I thought I was born at this time and when I looked at the chart I was like, no, that doesn't seem right. But then like when I did this went into this deep meditation and was like the numbers showed up for me and I was
Mm.
like plugged it in and did some like deep dive into it. I was like, that's me.
Wow. Wow.
That is so me.
That's
Oh yeah.
crazy. So your website mentioned shadow work and you were talking about deconditioning. How do
Yes.
those practices implement or complement human design?
Okay. So shadow work and deconditioning, they're often paired together as twins. And when really they're like distant cousins, because, shadow work is all about, going through your attic or basement, depending where you're living. I live in Texas. We can't have basements. You go through your attic because there's so much stuff piling on that you have no choice but to like face it and whatnot. Whereas like deconditioning is when you actually look at the whole house as a whole. And so when you have like human design, you can look at the human design chart and say, okay, these are where my shadows are hiding. Like this is where all I will say majority of the open undefined centers are where your shadows are hiding, where you have to face it, because open centers define or undefined centers, that's where you're more apt to take in other people's things and also um hold in like trauma and whatnot. If it's defined, I will say this, you have more control on what goes in and what comes out. So whereas deconditioning, you actually can see exactly where you're conditioned the most. It can be either in a gate or a channel, whichever, or an undefined open center. And with conditioning, the thing that I love about conditioning is that you get to choose whether to keep the condition or not. And
Mm.
you can also like let's say this condition that somebody offered or provided you where you just decided to take in,
Hmm.
it doesn't have to stay. Like it's just there for that moment. And then you can say, you know what? I want to change it. Like I said earlier, you think of deconditioning as looking at the whole house. It's like somebody gave you this house or gave you their blueprint and they started creating the rooms and building the house how they think you should live it. Like, let's say the living room was built by your family and the kitchen was built by some maybe your friend or sister or like school or whatever, and then your study room was built by your like mentors and teachers and whatever. So you get to go into the house and say, you know what, I don't like this room. I want to turn this room into something else. Or, you know what? I like the color of the wall, but I hate the window. So I'm going to change the window.
Hmm.
That's what it all is. That's how it plays. And that's like what human design goes in. It's like saying, oh, there's an open space. Do I want to fill this open space or do I want to like take it out? So that's how human
Yeah.
design works.
It's funny you bring up the house because I always kind of use that analogy for generational traumas and things like that is, you move into the family home
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, that window's been broken for, 5 generations now. You can choose
Yeah.
to leave it that way or you can choose to fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's
Uh,
kind of cool. It's a
that's how it
great analogy. It's a great analogy. I love to use that analogy. So when you work with clients, what does the process look like when they come to you?
when they come to me, I first like to have them acknowledge their reality. And when I say their reality, how they perceive their reality. Not, and I tried, I'm like, hey, listen, I don't want you to think what other people think. I want you to completely be open, honest with yourself, because the key to deconditioning and even healing, no matter what you're doing, is acknowledging what you see and what you feel. Like, underline that. You,
Mm-hmm.
nobody else's perception but your own. And so once like they finally have this aha moment of, oh crap, this is how I built and created my life. That's when everything starts to be like, okay, yeah, you're right. I don't want to do this anymore. And so once they step into that, they're like, stuff happens really fast for them once they start acknowledging it. And we can like go in and be like, okay, well, this is the thing that I want to change. I want to keep this, but I want to change this. And so we start playing around with how they want to play with it, especially looking at their chart.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first thing that I like to do, other than, have them acknowledge their reality, is like we go over their energy type and their strategy, and also their authority, because those are the top three things that I'm like, hey, we really need to hone down on this, because this is going to support you on transitioning or deconstructing whatever it is that you want to deconstruct.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into looking at where they've been, the most popular place where they're able to be conditioned. And so once they can acknowledge where they're easily to be conditioned, they have that awareness
Yeah.
that they're like, oh, I don't have to take that in. And it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a lot easier for them. So they love it because the moment that they're like, oh, this is where I can be conditioned, but they're open to the condition, but they know that they don't have to take it. Like they can
Yeah.
leave it there and be
Yeah.
like,
It's
I'm
like
done.
taking your power back.
Yeah.
Like realize, you don't know what you don't know or what
Yeah.
so once you're like, oh, that makes sense,
Yeah.
you're like getting your power back. You're able to make that boundary or do whatever you have to do to
It's
kind of
exactly what
manage
it is.
it or choose, like now I can choose whether I want that or not. So
Yeah.
that's
That's
awesome.
exactly what it is. It's fascinating to watch people, from the start, like this is their reality. And then they start discovering pieces of themselves. And then they're
Hmm.
like, wait, I can leave that. I see you can leave
Yeah.
that. Like right there. Yes, right there. Um,
Yeah.
one client of mine, um, we were working on the mindset of prosperity. And I was using human design and gene keys at this point in time. Um, but I was like, hey, when we think of prosperity, y'all think of money, when really it's your relationship with the tangible things.
Hmm.
If you can touch it, if you can see it, that's prosperity. And so I was we were going deep into her unconscious Mars, and her unconscious Mars had to do with, the now. And I was just like, hey, what's your issue right now? She's like, I have a hard time saying no. And I'm like, okay, here's your homework. And so she did it. And she calls me a lot. She says, guess what I use? I said, you use the word no. And she's like, yes. And it feels so good.
That's
I'm like,
funny.
yay.
It's funny how just as simple as things, like I can do that. I'm
Yeah.
allowed to like say no to people. Like,
Well, but here's the thing, and I know there's a lot of people pleasers out there. I'm a recovering people pleaser, so guilty as
yeah,
charged.
most
No is
adoptees are.
yeah. No is really hard, but the only reason why it's hard for us to say no is because we never have given, I don't want to say never, we have yet given ourselves the permission or the opportunity to flow through all the emotions, the action of the word no,
Mm,
and get to the other side because you haven't experienced the other side. Allow yourself to experience the other side of no,
yeah,
and it gets easier.
yeah.
And so it's just like, no, no feels so good. I'm like, I know, right?
Yeah, I think we don't check in with ourselves. I mean, I was that way, especially when I first started this podcast and I was getting spread so thin because I wasn't saying no to anything.
Hmm.
And when I started, because I didn't feel good at first, because
Hmm.
I just felt like I can't let these people down. They're asking me to do this thing. But I wouldn't even check in. The yes was coming out of my mouth before I even like, how do I even feel about that? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And the yes was already out there. And I was like, now I gotta do
I
this.
I
You know,
bet you have when it comes to human design, the way you're speaking, I bet you have a defined solar plexus.
you think,
And when it comes to the defined solar plexus, you have to ride that wave of emotions before you can even answer. I have a defined solar plexus, and I've had to learn how to honor time. Like, hey, if somebody's going to ask me to do something, they're going to have to wait. And if they want it done, they better go ask somebody else because I'm
yeah.
not going to tell you right then and there. And I
Hmm.
will say this, like deconditioning from giving people an answer right then and there. I mean, it's hard, y'all, because there's
Yeah,
like part of you wants to say yes there, but then there's another part of you who says, I really don't want to, but I know that they're going to be up. Or here's the thing, you put in your mind that there's going to be all these things that's going to backfire if you say
consequences.
no.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Hmm.
And no, if you actually do listen to what your yes and your no is, depending what your authority is, especially in human design, um, it actually works out for the best. Like, yes, I may well, I don't say I take my time. I recognize the fact that I need to hold off before I answer because even if I do say yes, which I know for a lot of people who do have a defined sacral, they immediately, if it's something that they're excited about, on impulse, you're going to say yes. But by the time you get there, you're going to be like, "Ugh, why did I say yes? I
Yeah,
don't even want to do it." But that's where the whole waiting and it feeling all the feels. Like I have to feel the high and the low before I level out and say, okay, what is it that I want to do? So I have to feel both of them
that's
before I
great
can,
homework though for somebody to just, you know,
yeah,
don't don't say yes or no in the moment. Just,
yeah,
say I'll
don't.
get back to you in a few days or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but that's great homework for people that are people pleasers to kind of
yeah,
give that space to
yeah.
really feel it out before
Yeah.
before you
My
commit.
my husband has an undefined solar plexus. He's pure in what he is. He's a pure manifesting generator. So when it comes to his authority, I'm like, your yes and no is in that moment. So don't get in your head. Because
Mm.
there's the people who will get in their head and be like, do I want it? I'm like, no, it's gonna tell you right then and there,
Oh,
is it
okay.
a yes or a no? And so he's like, he takes that into account now and he's like, I don't want to do it. I said, okay, you don't have to do it. He's like, okay, that's it. I said, yeah, that's
That's it. That's
it.
all you gotta do. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
So, what are some misconceptions or challenges that you see commonly that people face when they start exploring their human design?
Um, the thing that I see most commonly is that people tend to go way too deep into it. Like they can take on, they'll take on their energy type, the strategy, their authority, but they also try to take on the other parts of it that it becomes
Mm,
overwhelming that they haven't pivoted, like they're trying to do a 360 instead of like a slight pivot. Like
yeah,
that's all you need to do for
yeah.
now.
Hmm.
So I've seen people crash and burn, be like, no, I gave up because it was too much. I'm like, well, did you like what I asked them what is it that you did? And they're like, well, I did this, this, and this. And I'm like, whoo, no. That is a lot. I said, for now, just get to know. I always tell them, identify your yes and no first.
Mm,
That's like the first thing you need to do is your yes and your no. And then, and of course, live out your energy type
hmm.
and authority. But like your yes and your no, that's important. Do that first because most people, actually all people have a difficulty with their yes and no.
Yeah,
So
that's so true. Can you share a moment when understanding your own human design chart that led to like a major shift or a breakthrough for you?
yes. So when I was looking at my chart and I was in a workshop with another human design reader who was just like, "Hey, you want to try this out?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." She was speaking into the definitions of human design, and what a definition is how your closed centers connect. When you have like all your closed centers connect, you that means you like learn really really fast. Like you don't need anybody to fill in the blanks for you. And so me, I have a triple split. So I have three
Oh
little
boy, that sounds
islands.
complicated.
Yeah, I was like, I got three islands of defined centers that are spread out that aren't connected.
Oh
And
wow.
she was saying, she goes, here's the thing with triple splits is that they don't need people like everybody else needs people. And I was like, wait,
Hmm.
so you're
Hmm.
telling me that I don't have to be connected all the time? She's like, what do you mean? I would get I'm the type of person who gets overwhelmed or drained really easily being connected to people all the time. And I would lose friends because they'd be like, it's like you just shut off. And I
Hmm.
would shut off for months. Okay. If I was connected, when I did the yoga teacher training, I was probably plugged into this group of women doing the teacher training for 9 months. So when I came out of it, I was like done. I was like, I can't, like, I'm glad, I'm grateful, but I need to unplug. I need to detach from y'all. So when she said, you are the type of person who just needs to be around people for a short amount of time, um, and not plug in all the time. You need to be able to detach yourself from them. You don't have to interact with anybody. Just go put yourself in a room that's full of people and you'll be good. That way you can walk away and you don't have to like worry or overthink. And I'm like, so it wasn't me. I thought I was a horrible friend because I would
Hmm.
detach. I wouldn't go, I wouldn't call, I wouldn't do text. I'm not a big texter. Um and so like now after I had lost a really good friend due to it, I would warn people and be like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm a person who detaches really easy and I sometimes detach for a very long time.
Hmm.
This is just a heads up." And I was like, it's not that I don't care about you. It's just that for my mental state and for my health, I have to do that. And like, this is before I even knew about the whole triple split because I was like, please don't pressure me with making me check in on you when I need to check in on myself.
Yes.
And so, like, when she said that, I was like, That makes sense.
That's a very common thing with adoptees as well. And I'm wondering if there's like a common thread in human design and like some of these major channels or whatever, I don't even know what you would
Mhm.
call them, that most adoptees have. Because as you know, a lot of the things you're touching, I'm like, oh gosh, that's like an adoptee thing. That's an adoptee thing. So that's kind of interesting.
And you know what? I would love to actually do some kind of research
I know, wouldn't that be
or
cool?
experiment. I'm like, let me have your chart and your chart just to see the
Yeah, there's a
familiar.
common,
Yeah.
some common, hits there. It's interesting.
I'm speaking into something,
I
audience.
know.
There you go. Shameless plug there.
So what do you think your life would look like if you hadn't discovered human design?
I probably still would be fighting the voices in my head and I probably would not be able to acknowledge like the parts of me that I've been holding in for so long because it really I will say each time I look at my chart and discover something different, it allows me to bring that part of me up and actually look at it comfortably and accept it uh, and be like, okay, that is a part of me. I'm okay with that. Like I have no shame anymore. I probably still would be silent. Um, because a lot of what where I was conditioned was in my throat, my
Hmm.
throat center.
Yep.
I have it's an undefined one. So like being silent, like I'm going to be a little personal here. My when I decided to be a little more open, I was testing the waters of my voice. I decided to open up about my past trauma because all the clients that I've had, they're like, "Why don't you ever tell your story?" And I was like, "Because I don't know how to." Like it only naturally comes out when I'm working with somebody because for them to trust me, they also have to know and understand, "Hey, I do understand where you're coming from." So like I decided to do a podcast video, first attempt, y'all. Um, doing a YouTube video of sharing my story. And
Mm,
my mom ended up getting a hold of it.
wow.
And I wasn't hiding anything whatsoever. She took it as me attacking her.
Yeah.
And we worked hard on our relationship, okay? I thought we were in a really good place for me to be able to like speak and say because she had acknowledged what she had done to me and she had said sorry and I, vice versa. I know I didn't help the situation when I was growing up. Um so I thought, okay, cool. I can talk about it. No, I think she only heard half and she didn't hear the other half. And so she ended up stepping away from me and kind of like saying, you know what, I can't talk to you right now. I kind of have to press pause on this relationship that we have.
Mm, wow.
And so I took it as, so you don't want me to speak kind of thing. And like, and that's the whole reason why I didn't share is because I didn't want to
Yeah.
hurt my mom. We were finally in a good place. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now I got to protect this relationship. And so knowing that my throat center is undefined and looking at my human design chart, that I'm like, oh, that's where it's held. That
Mm,
is where my biggest conditioning is to like I I've been told by multiple healers, they're like, "Why aren't you using your voice?" I'm like, "Because
yeah.
nobody taught me how to use the voice, okay?
Yeah.
They just told me, "Hey, speak when spoken to. If you're spoken to, you're going to answer this way and you're only going to give this much information." That is how I was taught to
Hmm.
use my voice. So I
Yeah.
did that. So yeah, that's where and so now that we haven't spoken since like it's been a year now. Um and I think I told you earlier before this even recording is I am now deconditioning and currently embodying the openness of my voice. So I'm now being more open, regardless of how somebody might feel, because their
Mm.
feelings are
Are
not
not your
my,
responsibility.
yeah, they're not my responsibility.
Yeah.
I can no longer protect other people's peace. I can only protect my own.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Again, a very common adoptee thing.
Yeah.
I'll have to give you my chart and we'll have to see if there's some common ground
Yes.
things
Yes.
because again,
Yes.
like there, it's yeah. I'm just curious, you know.
I would love, I will, you know what? I'm gonna totally get your information after this. So
Yeah.
I geek out.
Get a few other ones and just see because
Yes.
yeah, I think there's a lot in common. It'd be interesting to see how that comes out. So
Yes.
you also do gene keys. Can you just kind of lightly touch on what that is?
Okay. Yes, I do also gene keys. So human design is your divine masculine, while gene keys is your divine feminine. You need them both. But I like to say that you got to embody the divine masculine before you can like even touch on your. I want to say there's just a little part of your divine masculine that you need to embody before you touch on gene keys because it's going to help support you on flowing the wave of your divine feminine because
Mm,
masculine so fixed, divine feminine, it's the water. It's the current of the water. And you kind of need some of that to ride the wave.
mm-hmm.
And so Gene Keys, once again, is made up of your birthday, place, and time. And there's three sequences held within them. There's the first sequence is your activation sequence, and it is why you came here on this earth and what you came here on this earth to do.
Wow.
Okay. If you look at human design, it's going to be your incarnation cross, your conscious sun and conscious earth, and then your unconscious sun and conscious earth. That is what makes up why you came here on this earth. Then you step into the Venus sequence, which is has to do with your love, your relationships, who you attract, what you attract. It's just getting to know your emotions. Then when you move through that, there's multiple different spheres, by the way. When you move through that sequence, you then step into prosperity, the your relationship with the materialistic plane here in this 3D world. So there's those three sequences, and there's when it comes to a gene key, there's three different frequencies. So there's the shadow frequency, there's the gift frequency, and then there's the CD frequency. And this is where the shadow work comes in. But a lot of actually all the gene keys also correlate with the gates within the human design. I like to look at my human design, and then if I notice that they're like a gate that I haven't explored yet, I'll go to gene keys because it gives a deeper definition. And so I'll be like, "Oh, so I'm living in the shadow right now. How in the
Oh,
world do I get out of the shadow?" And that's where I like go and look at the gift. So,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, so I am hoping to have you back on because now I'm really interested in gene keys because it's funny because I always feel like I'm mostly in the masculine energy.
Hmm.
And I always say, I feel like my past lives I was a man and now I'm a woman. Why did I choose to come back as a woman?
Oh,
I'm like, oh, I hate this female stuff. So maybe I need to look at gene
yeah.
keys a little bit
I
more.
I actually was in my divine masculine majority of the time. And when I discovered human design and Gene Keys is actually the first one that I decided to dive into because I was like, I really need to hone down on these divine
Mm,
feminine things. But then I realized after, doing my thing that I do with like learning things, I was like, wait, I need you. Come here. So I'd be like, human design, come here. And so, yeah, it's a good balance, the yin
yeah,
and the yang. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. So, just for anyone listening right now who feels lost or unsure, um, or just afraid of what they might uncover,
Yeah.
what would you want to say to them?
You are not broken. at all. You, a lot of people go and try and search for who they are through other people.
Mhm.
But here's the thing, their perception has nothing to do with who you are truly are. You're beautiful. And like I said earlier, you are everything you need to be at every moment, no matter
Yeah.
what it is. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
So, why don't you tell us where we can find you? And of course, I'll have all the links in the show notes, but where are you at? How can people get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me. I have a website. It is Meghan, Meghan dash Lambert, Lambert.com. That is the website. You can also find my podcast on there if you don't have Spotify, the podcast for speaking into shit. And then I also have Facebook, which is Meghan Lambert, and then also Instagram, Meghan Lambert again. Just so you all know, I am, I don't want to say freshly, I kind of freshly stepped back into the world of social media. I took a social media detox.
Hmm.
And I recently, maybe a month and a half ago, got pushed into stepping back into that world. And I was like, okay, one foot at a time, Megan. You can do this. But I've learned, and I'm like, okay, this is my flow. I like it. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, all those links will be in the show notes. Thanks for coming on today and talking about human design. And I just feel like, you know, finding these things about yourselves and unlocking some of these realizations and becoming authentic
Mhm.
is such a huge thing when it comes to healing. I
Oh
mean,
yes.
it's like a huge key to it. So, if you are curious about your human design, listeners, get in touch with Megan. She can help you kind of weed through it and not get so overwhelmed with the
Yes.
process.
Oh yes.
Yeah. If today's conversation sparked something inside of you, a sense that there's a deeper, truer way to live, then trust that feeling. It's your invitation to come home to yourself. I hope Megan's wisdom around human design and deconditioning gave you a fresh perspective on your own journey back to wholeness. If you wish to connect with Megan, her links are in the show notes. And if you are a healer, practitioner, or expert working with an out of the box healing modality, something that challenges the mainstream and empowers deep transformation, I would love to hear from you. I am always looking for unique voices and approaches to share with the Karma crew. You can get in touch with me at mindyourownkarma@gmail.com. And if you're feeling called to go deeper with your healing journey and just feel like you aren't quite getting there with traditional modalities, I invite you to explore somatic mindful guided imagery, the transformational practice that I offer that connects you to your body's inner guidance, can heal old wounds, and helps you embody your true self. You'll find more details at my website, somatichealingjourneys.com. As with every episode, take what you need and leave what you don't. And always remember to mind your own karma. Thanks for listening today, Karma Crew. And remember, you might be only one listen away from a totally different life. I'll see you next time.